Good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for finding time to being with us this afternoon. My name is Miriam Ogutu. The show is Diaspora Dispatches, where I get to bring you the latest news from across countries in the continent of Africa. Good morning, good evening, depending on where you are tuned in today. The date is the 23rd of March 2020, and we shall start our bulletin this afternoon from South Africa. And the country on Tuesday relaxed some of the remaining COVID-19 caps, dropping mandatory negative results for inbound fully vaccinated travelers, a move expected to boost tourist numbers. President Cyril Ramaphosa made the announcement to scale down restrictions imposed with the coronavirus when the coronavirus arrived in the country in March 2020, as new infection rates slowed and deaths are fewer. Previously, all travelers entering the country were required to produce a costly negative PCR test. Inside the country, vaccinated individuals or those that have negative test results will be allowed back into sporting stadiums and music and theatre shows, which will be permitted to operate at half capacity. The mandatory wearing of face masks when outdoor has been scrapped, but will remain mandatory in public indoor spaces. As of Tuesday, South Africa recorded a total of 3,705,695 laboratory confirmed cases, including 99,893 fatalities out of the population of 59 million people. We head over to Central African Republic, and a former Central African Republic militia leader accused of war crimes and crimes against humanity appeared before the International Criminal Court for the first time on Tuesday. Maxime Mokom, a one-time leader of the anti-Balaka armed group, appeared on charges of war crimes and crimes against humanity allegedly committed in Central African Republic in 2013 and 2014. Mokom, 43, was the leader of the self-proclaimed self-defense militias created in 2013 in reaction to the takeover of Bangui by the Seleka, a coalition of armed groups mainly composed of Muslims opposed to former President Francois Bozize. Mokom, who was handed over by Chad to the ICC in The Hague on Monday, confirmed in French his identity and said he had been informed of the crimes of which he is accused. He is suspected of, among other things, murder, extermination, deportation, forcible transfer of people, imprisonment, torture, prosecution, cruel treatment, and mutilation. His lawyer said Mokom was mistreated during his transfer by the Chadian authorities, alleging that he was fed only motley bread and sardines, that he had no bed and practically a chamber pot to relieve himself. Hearings at which the charges will be confirmed were set for January 31st, 2023. Violence by the Seleka and anti-Balaka in Central African Republic is said by the ICC to have left thousands dead and hundreds of thousands displaced. And then we go to Sudan, and the government has denied the reports about the presence of Russian paramilitary Wagner group in Sudan. In a statement issued on Tuesday, the Foreign Ministry termed accusations by the ambassador of the US, Britain and Norway on Wagner's activities in Sudan as blatant interference in Sudan's domestic affairs. On March 21st, the Troika for Sudan, the US, Britain and Norway said the Wagner group was engaged in illicit activities that undermine the rule of law in Sudan, but the Sudanese ministry denied the claims, saying the three envoys are trying to drag Sudan into the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. The statement condemned the Troika's allegations about the presence of the Russian private security company Wagner in Sudan to carry out military training, mining and other illegal activities. According to Bloomberg, the Wagner group is engaged in military trainings and activities as well as in protection of gold mines in Angola, Libya, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Central African Republic, Madagascar, Mali, Mozambique, as well as Zimbabwe. And then we move on to Guinea. And meetings aimed at promoting reconciliation opened in Conakry on Tuesday, 6 months after military coup upsets Guinea's constitutional order. Dubbed the National Conference, the meeting, to be held over several weeks, will bring together political parties, youth groups, women organizations, traditional leaders, and the civil society to discuss what junta leader Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya has called a new institutional framework for the country. But some people would rather the junta organize dialogue about the transition from army rule. Others questioned why they were non-agenda. What was the agenda for the conference? The country's army leaders have not spelled out a schedule for a return to civilian rule. Despite pressure from West Africa's regional bloc ECOWAS, it is not clear what the authorities will do with the recommendations of the meeting. In 2016, Guinea held a similar event. Critics of the junta say the conference is a ploy by the army leader to divert voices clamoring for transition. And then we go to Burkina Faso, and Burkina Faso's Transitional Assembly formally took office on Tuesday. The 71-member assembly will be responsible for voting on the text of reforms planned during the transition. In Ouagadougou, the National Assembly was back to business on Tuesday. Burkina Faso's Transitional Assembly took months after military takeover led to the ouster of former President Roch Kabore. The assembly will be responsible for voting on text of reforms planned during the transition. And during the ceremony, the academic Abubakar Tagoyune was elected to head the Transitional Legislative Assembly, and the body, of course, is made up of 71 deputies. All right, so South Sudan has a country that has beat it in deputies, but of course these are deputies in different capacity in that transition council in Burkina Faso. And still staying with Burkina Faso, and the trial for the October 1987 assassination of former Burkinabe President Thomas Sankara and his colleagues resumed on Tuesday after the Constitutional Council rejected a defense petition. The trial of 14 men for the October 1987 assassination of Burkinabe President resumed. In the Ouaga 2000 venue serving as court, it was time for the speeches for the defense. The lawyer assisting the former medical officer charged with forging Sankara's death certificate pleaded for acquittal. Two other defendant lawyers also pleaded for their clients to be acquitted, citing the 34-year time lapse between the trial and the acts alleged against the accused. They put forward a statute of limitations and a lack of witnesses. The Sankara trial was suspended in early March after the defense petitioned the Constitutional Council, citing the council's approval of the military takeover by Colonel Damiba. The lawyers challenged the charges of crime against national security, asking them to be dropped on the basis of an exception of unconstitutionality. And the latest from Nigeria is that 34 people, including 2 soldiers, have been killed in northwest Nigeria's Kaduna state. The attack, which took place on Sunday, was reportedly carried out by heavily armed criminal gangs known locally as bandits. Reports suggest at least 4 locations came under attack in the state by assailants, who also destroyed over 200 homes and burnt down shops on Sunday. One woman remains missing. A 24-hour curfew has been imposed by the Kaduna state government. The attack coincided with a raid that killed 16 in neighboring Zamfara state. The criminal gangs were officially declared terrorists by the government in January, and Amnesty International has condemned the Kaduna attack and called on the government to bring the perpetrators to justice. And in Sudan, Vice President for Services Cluster Hussein Abdel Baghi Akol has described as unfortunate the conflict-beating communities from Twig and Abyei region. The official currently on assessment visit to Arab state urged the 2 communities to respect each other's social systems and interests. He stressed the importance of peaceful coexistence between the 2 communities, urging both sides to desist from confrontations. According to the Vice President, the interests of the 2 communities are deeply intertwined, further adding that Twig and Abyei stand to gain from cooperation and lose from confrontation. And another breaking news, something that just happened a few moments ago. Somali state media now says the security forces have thwarted an attack on a military base at the sprawling international airport complex outside the capital, Mogadishu. It says 2 jihadists were killed as they tried to force their way in. A column of smoke can be seen still rising from the area which hosts international peacekeepers, the offices of the UN organizations and diplomatic missions, as well as hotels. No flights are reported to be taking off. The Islamist group Al-Shabaab said its militants had attacked the biggest foreign military base in Somalia. Attacks by Al-Shabaab have become more frequent, while Somalis have been voting in much delayed parliamentary elections. Yeah, that's interesting. All right, and that is the latest from the continent of Africa. Of course, that Somali story is just something that happened a few moments ago, and so it is a developing story. So perhaps in tomorrow's show, God willing, if you're able to come back here, then I will bring you the latest. But let's just look at... of course, South Africa is easing some of the COVID-19 restrictions, and a lot of countries have. My country, Kenya, already has. We don't have to walk around wearing masks anymore. But of course, in public areas, outdoor. But if you're in a public vehicle or inside a supermarket, then you're still encouraged to wear that in indoor, public space. You're supposed to do that. But Kenyans. I think it was becoming too much. So a lot of people just, I just keep walking around with that mask. So that is, slowly people are getting used to that, because the rest, all of us were used to just walking around with masks. So even after the government removed this mandatory, it was still a bit difficult for a few people to walk around without the mask. Some are still wearing it, which is still okay. And so South Africa now, if you were to travel there, PCR, test result is not a requirement anymore. Or even when you're leaving the country, I think you're not required to take a PCR, test, and as long as you've been vaccinated. And so I think that is a good thing. Now, Central African Republic, the leader of one of the militia leaders is standing trial at the ICC, and of course he's been accused of crimes against humanity that took place in 2013 and 2014. And Central African Republic has been very restive. And as I was reading that news about Sudan denying the presence of the Wagner group, a mercenary group, their presence in Sudan, I think they are there in Central African Republic, trying to, help Central African Republic handle the issue that has to do with the continued insecurity. Peace in Central African Republic, just like in the Democratic Republic of Congo, have become very, very elusive, and they're very intricate. And the interests that are represented in these countries, especially by external forces, there are many, and so they continue to fuel this conflict and war, and others even sponsor some of these militia groups, and so they've kept fighting. And so Central African Republic has not known peace for a very long, time. There's a semblance of a country that is, peaceful, but no, a lot of conflict is still ongoing. And this person, Maxime Mokom, is being accused of these crimes that took place in 2013, 2014, of course. So it's interesting because he's said to have led a militia group, a coalition of armed groups, mainly composed of Muslims opposed to former President Francois Bozize. I don't want to get into the details of that. And he's back in the country. I think he was acquitted by the ICC himself, and he still commands a huge number of supporters. I remember when he was coming back to the Central African Republic last year, the kind of reception he received was amazing. He still has a lot of support, and the way the politics have been playing out and the way the government has been handling opposition, I think it just makes things even worse there in Central African Republic. So it's just another country. I think it's just on the tipping point. It's just one of those countries you never know when things will get worse, yes. So yesterday, if I'm not wrong, during yesterday's show, I was telling you that Central African Republic now has had organized, the government had organized through, I think, another organization for a reconciliatory talk. But unfortunately, the leaders of even militia leaders or the leaders of opposition were not really invited in these talks. So if you want to have a political reconciliatory talk in a country that is deeply divided, and a section of very important part of the people who should be part of this talk are not involved, I don't know how you expect these talks to happen. I don't know what solution you expect to come up with that will leave the whole country feeling reconciled and coming together. And so I think it's just another gymnastics like the one we saw play out in Cameroon. I say that even yesterday. Paul B., I remember that national talks dialogue he organized by himself, because it was just government agenda and government officials who were present. The oppositions as well and the rebels were not, the separatist leaders were not invited from the English-speaking part, the Anglophone part in Cameroon were not invited. So it seems to be the same thing in Central African Republic, organizing for a dialogue, and a figure like Francois Bozize is not present in that meeting. He's not represented in that meeting. Are you kidding me? What kind of reconciliation are you looking forward to have for a man who still commands a lot of followers in Central African Republic? He still has a good command when it comes to the politics in Central African Republic, and he is opposed, in opposition, to the current government. And you think you're going to sit down and have a reconciliation talks and not have him present, or at least have him represented there? I mean, that is a waste of taxpayers' money. It's a waste of time. And I think those talks will not help anything. And then you throw in the issue of even some of the people that fought even on behalf of him. And during that time, they're now facing charges at the ICC. So this peace they're seeking for, these solutions they're looking for, these talks they're seeking to have, it has to be comprehensive. It cannot just be a piecemeal, and it cannot be targeted in a manner that it is meant to achieve a certain, or maybe to give a face of achieving a certain agenda, while truly is not achieving the peace and cohesion and the reconciliation that is badly needed in the Central African Republic. And two former Central Africa warlords, Patrice Edward Ngaisona and Alfred Yakatom, who led the anti-Balaka militias, are currently still on trial. This is another one, not the first one I told you about, not Mokom, who is 43 years old. These are others who are they're currently facing a trial at the ICC for war crimes and crimes against humanity. And of course, the trial of Mahamad Said Abdelkhani, an alleged Seleka commander also accused of war crimes and the crimes against humanity, will open in September. So all of these were militia leaders in Central African Republic, and they're all facing war crimes. So that's what I said yesterday, that Central African Republic needs to reconcile with itself first, reconcile with its past from the colonial era, because a lot of these things, they go way back, okay? And then come to the present, see where they are today, so that they can forge a proper future. Otherwise, these surface level knee-jerk solutions will not even last a day. Okay, so Sudan is denying the presence of Russian mercenary group Wagner. And the day that Russia invaded Ukraine, that was the day that the second in command of the military junta in Sudan went to Russia. And I think that was seen as support of Sudan military to the Russian invasion. I don't know. That is what it was perceived. And they seem to have, developed this cozy relationship that maybe is not sitting very well with the Western power. The people who are pro-democracy, the Troika, that is US, Britain, and Norway, they're not very happy. And so I think they've been observing, the dealings between Sudan and Russia. And now they're saying they are mercenaries from Russia's Wagner group in Sudan. For what reason, I don't know. But we know that the civilians have been protesting against the military rule, and they've been calling for elections to be organized as soon as possible. They've been taking on to the streets, and it was hoped that after the ousting of former President Omar al-Bashir, the people of Sudan would enjoy some different kind of, leadership that was not very militarized. And, Omar al-Bashir, his leadership was militarized. Not only was it militarized and people were tired of that, but now we have the real military people in power and in charge of the country. And since a signing of that agreement and forming a transitional government that was supposed to last for 3 years as they prepare for a transition and an election, just as they were getting towards that time, the military started acting funny. I think power became very sweet. And as we know, the military's position in the country of Sudan is very, very deeply rooted. Omar al-Bashir, led by the military, they're involved in businesses, they're involved in a lot of things in the economy of that country, in a lot of aspects, in controlling even the religion, in a lot of aspects in Sudan. So having to just push them back to the barracks, I think that is something that they're very unfamiliar with. 30 years Omar al-Bashir was in power. They were front and center on the leadership of that country. They backed he came to power through a military coup, and so he was backed by the military throughout his leadership. And so after the ousting, and the people of Sudan perhaps were, a majority of them or a good number of them are hoping for a new dispensation as far as leadership is concerned, but that has not come to be. And just as we're getting closer to the deadline of the 3-year transitional period where an election will be held, of course, the military was accused of frustrating the civilian side. Remember the transitional government, it had 11 members, 6 from the civilian side, and 5 from the military side. And we saw the Prime Minister Abdel Hamdok then being held on house arrest and all of that. It has been a circus there in Sudan. And so, of course, this did not sit well with the Western kind of democracy and the Western powers. So who does Sudan turn to? Russia, okay? That war over there. It's how they're just playing, in different parts of the world. And we see how that now will play out in Sudan. So they've been taking out to the streets and asking, for them to be, for the military to announce an election date and demanding, for civilian roles. That's what the people of Sudan have been doing. And so now the presence of allegations that there's a presence of the Russian, mercenaries in the country. I don't know. That is interesting. That is interesting. I don't know why they're coming to Sudan exactly, because for the Central African Republic, it's very restive. The insecurity is high. The militia activities there is just on another level, and so they came there in the pretext of, we are coming to help you with your security. Even in Mali, remember after France left, Russia, the mercenary group too, the Wagner, came in and said, you know what, never mind, we are coming in and we'll help you with taking care of your security. But for Sudan, I don't know what is the excuse, if at all it's true they are in Sudan. And I don't know because there's no military, there's no extremism. There's not too much extremism in Sudan compared to what we see in Mali. We know Sudan is still part of the Sahel region, by the way, but we see there's not much the kind of insecurity we see in the Sahel, the other greater Sahel region. We don't see that in Sudan. So I don't know why, Russian paramilitary group, the mercenary group, would find it necessary to come and be in Sudan. I think maybe the allegations are not true, but that is what the Troika These three countries are saying US, Britain, and Norway. And okay, Africa seems to be on a handshake wave right now. Well, we're not talking about Central African Republic organizing for those reconciliatory talks, which I think is bogus, because I mean you can't have a reconciliation talks if the foundation is not family, is not firm, if the intention is not right. I don't know what you intend to achieve by that. But Guinea also seems to be having its own reconciliation talks. And meetings aimed at promoting conciliation opened in Conakry on Tuesday, 6 months after a military coup upset Guinea's constitutional order. That started yesterday and dubbed the National Conference. The meetings, to be held over several weeks, will bring together political parties, youth groups, women organizations, traditional leaders, and the civil society to discuss what the junta leader, Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, has called a new institutional framework for the country. Remember, Doumbouya, I think, removed the constitution of Mali, and he said the military will work on having firm foundation for the Republic of Mali before the country is able to have an election. So he's calling all these interest groups. Maybe they give their ideas or their opinions on what, maybe if they need a constitutional change or how they want to be led or things like that. And so, but some people would rather the junta organize dialogue, about the transition of army. Remember, they were supposed to have an election in February last month. They refused. So they had said they need 5 years. So ECOWAS has been trying to mediate and have them concede to at least a lesser time period, not the 5 years, maybe even 2 or so years. But the army has refused. So I think, was it late last week? When ECOWAS came there, led by the former president of Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan, they were unable to get an agreement with the army junta in Mali and agree on an election date. The junta could not. And now that Russia is there and is backing, no, we're talking about Guinea. Yes, still there was a coup there. Sorry, I went all the way back to Mali. But yeah, so Doumbouya is organizing for this talk. So he wants to get the ideas from the people of Guinea and see how perhaps they would want to move forward, all right, how they would want to move forward. It is not clear what the authorities will do with the recommendations of the meetings. In 2016, Guinea held a similar event, but remember that was under different dispensation, and critics of the junta say the conference is a ploy by the army leaders to divert voices clamoring for transition, because we've seen also some Guineans taking out to the streets and demanding for a civilian, leadership there. These coups in Western Africa, they happened, very close. So sometimes you can confuse them. And as we speak right now, of course, Guinea has been suspended. I don't know what the whereabouts of Alpha Condé, the president who was ousted. I think, for him, it is his fault. After he decided to change the constitution, after he decided to mutilate the constitution for another third term, that, was not really necessary, I think he invited this to himself. And now look at this. It has affected the whole country. So I don't know about his whereabouts. I don't know if he is okay. We've not heard so much about him, but anyway, that is that. So thank you so much. That, of course, the trial of Sankara has started, again resumed after 3 weeks hiatus, and so I'll be following that because I kind of think the coup that happened in Burkina Faso also was just to stop this, because perhaps the people who will be named in this trial are still part of the army or the leadership, so they had to do something. But this is something I'll be following. Sankara was assassinated in October 1987, and Of course, the former president has been accused, Blaise Compaoré, to have been an accomplice. He's not in Burkina Faso now. He's out of the country, asylum, and I think he was in power after that 27 years, and he was removed by a coup. People protested, and he had to go. So that is something I'll be following keenly, and then I'll be reporting to you, of course, the deaths that happened in northern Nigeria now that have necessitated a curfew. I think when the people of Nigeria get tired of these insecurities that keep happening there and the government's lackluster response, I think they will do something to hold their government accountable. I don't know. I think right now it's even a broken record, unfortunately, and the lives of people there continue being jeopardized. Thank you so much for your time. This has been Diaspora Dispatches. My name is Mia Mogo. To enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye for now.